Morning.
Hello. Welcome to this session. My name is Ana Covinhas, and I'm a UX researcher at a tech company called OutSystems. And besides doing what researchers normally do in a tech company, I'm applying systems thinking and introducing participatory research methods in an agile, fast-paced environment. Previously, I have performed multiple ethnographic studies in remote communities. Let me just now share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you. So today's presentation is about systems thinking for ethnographers, and it's called With Great Power Comes Great Responsibility. So we will start with a brief introduction on what is systems thinking, and it includes a video of 2 real-life examples, and then we will have a group discussion on how systems thinking can be applied to your work contexts. So we will exchange experiences and brainstorm ideas on your own projects. So let's start. Some problems can only be solved when you deal with these underlying causes. But to identify those causes, you need to look at problems within their context. So let me show you a short video with these 2 real-life examples in which we applied systems thinking. This video was created at OutSystems by my colleagues and I. I hope you enjoy. Do you think your work as an ethnographer has an impact on people's lives? If you don't think so, think again.
As ethnographers, you constantly work in different contexts and you play an important role in enabling resilience. You have the power to drive the direction of initiatives, provide strategy on products, and make decisions on services that support people and companies while they face changes.
Let's face it, adversity is inevitable. No matter how trivial or serious your challenges might be, you must build that resilience.
Now, that doesn't mean that resilient people or companies are immune to hardship. They are not. They can, however, emerge stronger from those changes. And ethnographers play an important role in that process because of their competence.
But remember, with that great power comes great responsibility. Now, what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to handle changes and adversities successfully. And to do that, you need to take into account the entire picture and relationships in a given context. I recommend applying a systemic approach. Let me give you an example. I spent several years in Mozambique working to improve agriculture because it is the only source of income for the majority of the working population. They need to be resilient to deal with the effects of climate change. In the last few decades, Mozambique has been suffering from multiple disasters like severe drought, flooding, and cyclones. Therefore, they need to understand what seeds to plant, when to plant and harvest, and how to work around their geographic location. So, at IITA, we aimed at improving agricultural practices countrywide. In fact, farmers struggled to get information that would allow them to adjust to climate change. Initially, we thought that improving the communication specifically to farmers would be the solution. So, my main focus was enabling proper communication to reach that goal. The systemic approach allowed us to realize that the problem we wanted to solve was way more complex than anticipated. Our primary target audience for the communication solution were not smallholder farmers after all. We found out we needed to consider the agro-dealers and the field technicians because they provide inputs like seeds and fertilizers, and they provide in-person assistance to farmers, and they sell the produce. If we didn't create a communication solution to field technicians and agro-dealers, the chain wouldn't work properly. No one produces something in large quantities if there are no buyers. So, designing a solution to improve communication for these stakeholders would have a positive impact on the entire agricultural supply chain. Inputs, production, processing, distribution, and consumption. One of the proposals that emerged from this research was the creation of an online knowledge base that contains crucial information for all stages of the supply chain. This knowledge base allowed field technicians to learn how to properly train farmers to produce crops resistant to extreme weather conditions, and supported agro-dealers to make better business decisions, such as properly pricing seeds. In addition to the knowledge base, we passed along snippets of information to farmers via SMS and radio. In the end, our ethnographic research allowed people and agribusinesses to become more resilient because it impacted the entire value chain. Not only the farmer's production, which is just one part of the entire chain. We had the power to impact every aspect of their lives and businesses, and were responsible for the way they adapted.
On a grander scale, let's look at influence we, as ethnographers, can have on a global level. In the past few years, the world drastically changed due to the COVID pandemic, and technology was used to help people and companies become more resilient. Tons of people lost their jobs, or their wages were reduced, and numerous businesses reached critical stages or even had to close their doors. So, both people and organizations needed to adapt to this new reality in order to survive. In fact, worldwide, 34% of organizations increased the use of the internet and digital platforms, and 17% have invested in new equipment, software, or digital solutions. Let me give you a specific example from my experience working at OutSystems. When COVID reached the Netherlands, millions of people needed support, and this was followed by many people wanting to help as volunteers. But this caused a problem. Matching the tasks to the volunteers took too long, which hindered the Red Cross's ability to help. They needed to adapt fast to this demanding context. OutSystems and Deloitte teamed up to become the solution. And in just 6 weeks, they had an app that enables volunteers to view local shifts that match their qualifications, and they were able to register for their own shifts. The result? Countless hours saved by the Red Cross and more help to those who needed it. Our research work to create a user-friendly low-code tool made an impact on the volunteers, Red Cross, and those in need. I mean, not all heroes wear capes. In both scenarios, the target audiences, whether they were farmers, remote workers, software developers, the Red Cross, all adapted and emerged stronger. So reflect on this. Whether you are working with remote communities in the world or working remote from your home, consider how you can support the resilience of people and businesses. They will benefit from your research. Be mindful of how you can promote resilience in your research so you can make a greater impact on whatever context you might be working in. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility, and you have the power to make those changes.
Okay, so in this first example, we thought that improving the communication specifically to farmers would be the solution to improving agricultural practices countrywide, but it wasn't. Only with a systemic approach we were able to have an impact on the entire agricultural supply chain by incorporating the remaining components of the chain in the study. Without this holistic perspective, the chain wouldn't work properly because farmers wouldn't be able to process, transport, and sell the large quantities of produce. Similarly, at the tech company, we applied systems thinking to identify opportunities for optimization. We considered not only the software developers' goals and experience, but the entire context. That is, all the elements directly and indirectly involved in software development. But before we dive in, there are two important things to consider. The first one is that systems are made of interconnected parts that affect each other. The second one is that systems thinking is a way of making sense of the world's complexity by looking at it in terms of wholes and relationships. So, in a nutshell, what the system thinker does is define the area of focus, research to learn the context, correlate all gathered information in a diagram. And you can represent the systems using different kinds of visual diagrams that are also called relationship maps or system maps. Let me quickly share just a couple of visual examples from my previous experience to clarify what I'm talking about. Do you remember the second example from the video? Well, this is a visual representation of the systems related to low-code software development. Here, we use the service blueprint to represent all actors, not only the low-code developers, and all relevant interconnections and experiences inside and outside the development platform. And this is a different type of visualization, probably the most common among systems thinkers. These are system maps from a meat processing plant in northern Italy. On the left side, you can see the situation before the systemic project. And on the right, the improved systems in which resources are optimized and waste reduced and so forth. And yes, as you can see, systems thinking can get quite complex. So here is a simplified diagram of the same systems. And here an even more simplified diagram of the improved systems. But there's one important thing to remember. What really matters in the end is the outcome and the improved business, not the system map itself. The system map is just a tool. So with systems thinking, we can identify unforeseen opportunities, identify the root causes of problems and therefore tackle deeper problems, and come up with effective solutions. So after doing a systemic study, many opportunities and problems are identified. So we need to prioritize the opportunities and problems and select the ones to tackle. And having this holistic perspective will also facilitate that prioritization. In conclusion, systems thinking allows us to cope with complex contexts and projects. So now that the introduction is done on systems thinking, we are going to do this practical exercise to explore how systems thinking can be applied to your work context. You will be split into groups randomly. And when you are in the groups, first, each one of you should share very quickly your area of focus. That is, the project in which you are working on. And then each group should choose one project to do the exercise, ideally a project in which a group member is working on. And this is the board that you will use to help you organize your thoughts. I will share the link on the Zoom chat, and each group has a board page. Today I will need to do, let's see, let's put three people in each group, so around 10 groups. And please use the page that has the number of your Zoom room once you are randomly grouped. And I'm going to add here more exercise pages, so we have enough pages for all the groups. And in the green note at the center, each group writes the area of focus that you are going to work on, that you are going to discuss about. Then in the yellow notes, the person that is in that specific project indicates which elements are already under study, okay? Which things were already researched or being researched at the moment. And after that, you in the group, you do a brainstorming on how you can broaden the scope of the research, right? And you write down those new system elements that could be further researched or explored in order to get an holistic perspective of the context. So it's just exchanging on ideas on how could we see it in a broader way. Then, if we have time, we all come back to the main Zoom call and share some key learnings with with all of us. And after your holistic research, once you have gathered all the information about the context, you can create a diagram using Google Slides or a design tool like Illustrator or Miro or Kumu. And by the way, Kumu is a specialized tool to create relationship maps. And you should correlate the elements by analyzing causes and effects, or by identifying systems inhibitors and enablers, or by creating loops and so forth. Of course, unfortunately today, there isn't enough time to talk about these specific techniques to create the diagrams, but at least we start to think about ways to broaden the scope of your research projects. Okay?
Oh no!
I'm sorry. I know that you were having awesome discussions, right?
And it's like, we're being pulled back in. We don't know.
And time just flies. And I would like to know if some of you would like to share learnings from the session. Something interesting that came up.
I'll share something. Let's see. Can you go to group 4? Elected positions in the state of Alabama. And what I found was interesting is after we discussed the current and the future kind of pieces of research, is considering what the nature of the pipeline itself is, and the pipeline as a product that will be filled with people and then managed and maintained, drawn from, and how long that perspective is and what it would take to maintain it and sustain it. So that was interesting to identify the product in this leadership development effort. And that would, you know, generate more ideas for research and experience design and stuff like that.
And then ideas start to appear, right? Oh, we can research this and that, right?
Yeah, we just got there and then we're pulled back in. It's such a big question to explore and try to map out in just a few minutes.
It's true, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we had more time.
So we were group 9, and I think we added a lot of elements, and maybe Sydney can talk to it. I was going to say for myself, we didn't work on my project, but it really made me think about, I've been thinking a lot about all the interconnected pieces, but I have not laid them out like this. And I love how simple it is in terms of just sort of figuring out. I've been talking a lot about different pieces, but am I missing any? I might be. And so I'm thinking just doing this exercise made me think that might actually be itself very useful to help identify who I'm not talking to or haven't talked to yet. So anyway, so now I call this out. Sydney, do you want to say something about your own project rather than having me talk to it?
Grow their operations, right? And I actually thought this exercise was fantastic because I feel like we took what I've spent almost the past 3 months learning, and we're able to easily map it out. And I love that, you know, that Jamie and Sarah were able to already start populating a lot of the big issues that we've got to think around. And so this was great. And especially thinking about the pieces where we see farmers and investors, like we have to find ways that they intersect. And I think this was a beautiful way to think about those intersections rather than thinking, okay, investors are one set of users, they're totally separate from farmers who are a different set of users, which is a lot of the way that we've, you know, we're kind of like approaching it before. So, you know, as the, like we're standing up a research org for this startup. And I think this is a fantastic way to actually start with a really solid approach.
I had a thought about that, which was, you know, you're talking about the intersection between farmers and investors, and could you put something speculative into the mix here? Like, for example, the investor farmer, and just force the mashup, call it something that's speculative and use that for additional generation of ideas. That's something that I might try for my project, is put something more speculative in here. For the purpose of provoking.
Yeah, I've actually been using systems thinking in the work I do to bring it together and show them the role that each of their pieces of work plays in the larger picture, and why we need to look at not the narrow view, but the broader view to understand the impact that the work that each one of us does on the larger ecosystem, because otherwise we get so siloed in addressing and perfecting that little piece of work that we do without knowing the context into which it fits. And the minute you bring that context into awareness, then it changes the perspectives that people used to think about their work and the way they talk about it and the way they contribute to it. So for me, it was more about getting the team to start looking at the work they do differently. They might be doing the same thing, but I needed them to start looking at it very differently and look at it in terms of where does it add value in the larger picture of things, and constantly being able to, every once in a while, being able to either zoom in to make sure you're getting the detail right, or zoom out to make sure that you're getting the perspective right. And that helps a lot. And that's, I actually love the idea of systems thinking, and I've been actually putting it into work. So it was great to see Anna doing this. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll comment. I think I feel when I look at this, I see a lot of really good questions. What I would be looking for, I think, was a little bit, what I would be looking at domains. So like, for example, you have policy domains, you have information channel domains, you have sort of educational, maybe it's educational channels. So thinking, so from, and Anna, maybe you can correct me, but I think I would be first looking at where are the different kinds of pieces of the system that then these questions fit into, so that I could begin to map out how these things relate. So how do people get information about policy? So not only what are the policies, but how do people get information about policies, or how do they manage their relationship to policies? What are those channels like? And what are there opportunities or needs that fit sort of between these bodies?
Love that.
And thank you so much for your active participation. Please reach out to me. We can connect on LinkedIn, and we can further talk about this or other topics.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thanks.